Hey, what's the largest problem you're facing right now with your junk removal business? Are you still researching the business and you're looking, hey, where do I get started? Are you not getting enough jobs? Are you slam busy and you're having to turn away work, but you don't know how to take it to the next level, how to hire crews and get more trucks? Are you worried that the crews you have aren't doing a great job or maybe even stealing from you? These are all problems that every junk removal business owner is gonna face as they grow. These are problems I've had and I've learned how to solve. The solutions can be found in the complete Junk Removal Business Training Series. Grow your business, change your life with the JRA Complete Training Series. Hey everybody, welcome to Junk Removal Authority, Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern. I am Lee Godbold with Junk Removal Authority, where we help junk removal business owners make more money and live a better life. And every single Tuesday, for the most part, except when we don't, we bring you Let's Talk Junk by Junk Removal Authority. All right, so last week, it was the first week back after a few weeks off, so appreciate everybody tuning in. It looked like a lot of people found some stuff valuable, so I got some messages back saying, hey, it was good stuff we covered last week. Marketing services, the junk removal marketing packages that JRA offers. We work with over 140 different customers throughout the country now, providing SEO, Google Ads, and websites. That's the big three on the junk removal marketing package. The guys that use all three are the ones that are seeing the greatest success. SEO is your absolute best long-term investment. Google Ads and website gets you started. SEO takes you across the finish line. They wave the checkered flag as you beat everybody in your area by getting amazing organic results, not having to pay Google for business. That's an amazing thing. Takes a little while to get there, to really get there, to pass what you can do in Google Ads. But once you get there, it's all about winning at that point with the SEO program. Check us out, 919-617-1975, junkra.com. Get signed up for the junk removal marketing packages, especially that SEO service. All right, how's everybody's business been? How's July been so far? So typically, July is a month that is just a little bit slower than the rest of your busy season. So we normally say, busy season runs somewhere from March 15th, actually not somewhere, it like literally normally starts on March 15th, from March 15th to the end of October. And then you've got November and December generally are not very bad. We don't really throw that in as being part of busy season, but we've actually had a December one time be the second busiest month throughout the entire year. So November and December aren't bad. You're gonna fall flat on your face in January and February. So you're gonna use January and February as a chance to really recharge. Well, July is kind of like your summer break, if you want to say that. So normally you get into July, it's a little bit slower, not for everybody, and not always, you might get a really big job. Normally July is a little bit slower. August, somewhere around in the beginning of August, it picks up, then kids go back to school, you fall on your face for 2 weeks, you're a little bit slower, and then it picks right back up and runs all the way through the end of October. So how's business been? Leave it in the comments. Would love to see how your business has been through July. I'm sure everybody watching you always kind of want to compare how you're doing compared to everybody else. It makes you feel good inside or makes you feel bad and get out there and get to work one way or the other. But post that in the comments. All right, so today, what are we talking about today? Today, we're going to talk about comp plans that motivate. Comp plans being a compensation plan. Okay, so once you get junk removal employees, you're going to start paying them. Now, a lot of junk removal companies, if you're like me, we started out on a pickup truck and trailer. I started out by myself. I then brought in there's a couple different guys that began helping within the first few weeks whenever I had a really large job. And then somewhere around the first month to 6 weeks in, Christian started coming in and helping me consistently. And he runs Junk Doctors now as a business partner and all. So Christian came on. But starting out, we paid guys, it was 10 years ago, I can say this, we paid guys a little bit under the table. We paid them by cash at the very beginning. That didn't last long. Very quickly into it, we went over to a payroll service and actually paid people like you're supposed to pay them. You should be starting that right from the beginning. Right from the beginning, don't do any of the under the table stuff. Go ahead and start your business right, be legal right from the start, and you're gonna set yourself up for success much faster than going the route that we did. when we set up these initial compensation plans, what you're normally thinking about is, all right, I'm going to pay this guy per hour. Now, I remember when we first started, it was terrible. When I first started, I was paying a guy like $20 an hour while he was working, but the drive time, the windshield time, I can't remember if I wasn't paying him or if I was paying him a less amount. So if you can sit there and imagine you're having to track all this stuff, and it's just, it's not a good way of going about it. So the very first thing you set up is when you're paying your guys hourly, you pay them from the time they clock in to the time they leave. Listen, guys, that's their time. You know, maybe a lunch break. If you just determine you want to, you know, have that 30-minute or 1 hour lunch break where they actually clock out, that's fine. But outside of that, it's their time. If they weren't getting paid, they wouldn't be at, you know, in your truck working on your jobs at that particular point. So just forget about this whole deal and trying to figure out windshield time and working time. It's all the same. All right, so now we established the baseline. You're actually paying people for their time. The second thing is, how do you actually motivate them? So when you're trying to build up your business, what are the most important assets that you have in your junk removal business? Yeah, you're probably thinking about your trucks, the tools and all like that, but by far and away, the most important thing in just about any business, but especially in junk removal, where we are a labor business, it's your people. Your very most important asset is your people. So when you want to grow your company, if you want to increase revenues and increase profits, you're going to utilize your asset, your most important assets, to acquire more. And what ways can you actually do that? Well, there's a few different ways. You can get more customers. That's going to drive the top line. You can get more per job. You can do jobs faster, or do more jobs faster, but do jobs faster / less time. So those are 3 ways. And then the other potential one is less jobs that cancel. So this goes back to completing more jobs, but you have a lot of jobs that are canceling, you've really hurt your profit because you've gone on to, this is on-site jobs. We'll put on-site. You have gone to this person's location, driven out there, you've paid your guys to get out there, you've driven your truck out there, and they quoted or whatever, and the customer cancels. So you're out all that money at that point. It cost you 80 or 100 bucks just to get on site. It's gone because you didn't collect a single dime from that job. So those are the 4 ways. There's going to be more than this, but these are kind of the top 4 ways that you can make more top line, make more money, more profit, is through these methods right here. So there are 2 ways. What you got to do is you got to have your asset, your people accomplish these things. So how can you go about doing that? Well, there's 2 ways that it can be accomplished. The very first way is you set minimum performance standards. The second option, reward over performance. So which one do you want to do? You want to do number 1 or you want to do number 2? Which option do you want? Actually, it's not a matter of either or. You have to do both of these things. So in order to get maximum results from your people, you need to set minimum performance standards and you need to reward over performance. A lot of guys believe it, you know, everybody probably thinks, you know, everybody does this, but not necessarily. I think a lot of people tell people kind of what's expected of them at the start, but they don't constantly reinforce it. They don't let their team know exactly how they are doing those things, meeting those expectations. They don't put it in writing. They don't say, you know, this is exactly what's expected of you. If this isn't met, this is kind of what occurs. You know, it's not laid out like a job offer. It's, hey, you want to come work with me? Okay, here's 15 bucks an hour. I want you to help me load a truck. You haven't gone into saying, you know, hey, I want to make sure you've got a smile on your face when you greet a customer. I want to make sure you're not using slang words when you're talking with the customer. You're properly enunciating. You look happy, like you want to be there. You're not really all slouched over. You're constantly moving on the job. You got two hands. Both hands are being used throughout the entire amount of the job. You're not just picking up one little item, throwing it in the truck. You're utilizing both hands. So you go through exactly what your expectations are. Hey, when you come in the morning, you're in on time. You're not 5 minutes late. You're not 2 minutes late. And when you walk through that door, we expect you uniform on, shirts tucked in. You've already ate breakfast. You don't be popping in here, clocking in, and all of a sudden starting eating your breakfast. You should already have ate your breakfast by the time you actually get in. Or if you want to eat it on the road, once you're heading on the landfill or whatever like that, that's fine. But don't sit around the office and eat when you first get in. Lay out exactly what is expected at the start, and you tell that person, hey, I want to lay everything out on exactly what's expected of you. That way you know if this is going to be a real good fit, a good job fit for you, and you also know if you're doing a good job or not. So you clearly lay everything out, and then at least on a quarterly basis, probably more like really on a monthly basis, on a consistent basis, you're giving regular feedback, and then at least on a quarterly basis, you're actually sitting down with that person. You're reviewing the comp plan that you came up with, the expectations, and you're figuring out, hey, have you met that? And if you haven't, why didn't you? And what's your plan moving forward to actually be able to meet these expectations? So that, and if somebody doesn't perform, guys, you kind of put them in some sort of a remediation plan. If you think they're worth it, and be like, and you work with them more often instead of meeting with once a quarter. You're now saying, all right, on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, we're going to get together and we're going to review this stuff. Here's the plan. We're going to lay out a plan together for you to be able to meet these performance standards. If you don't meet them, adios. That's the end, and you end the relationship. And that's tough. Very, very tough to do that. But if you do that, you're going to have a much better performing team. The team members you have are going to go above and beyond to do a very, very good job. All of us know it's very demotivating if you're out there busting your butt and you're doing the right things and doing something great, and then somebody else isn't, and yet that person's still hanging around making almost as much money as you are. It's demotivating. So you got to really, really protect your team by setting and enforcing minimum performance standards. And then you need a reward over performance. And this is something that took us a while to come up with. And you don't want to rush into this. So if you haven't been doing this for 6 months or a year or 5 years or 10 years, it's not like you have to drop what you're doing right now. You really need to go through the multiple possibilities of setting these comp plans up. We're going to cover some of that today. That's also going to be something we're going to cover in our upcoming mastermind group, which I believe is sold out. We got 2 guys that still haven't paid, I think. So if you're still interested, click on the link. You can submit contact form and all like that. Get on that kind of waiting list, because if these 2 guys don't pay in the next day or 2, we're going to be reaching back out to you. So there will be a link in the description on that. All right. So the very first thing I want to cover is what a lot of you guys might think about is profit sharing. I am not a fan of profit sharing in a junk removal setting. And profit sharing, it could be anything. It could be profit or revenue sharing. It's basically, the premise behind it is your truck team members will get some percentage of the income they bring in. It could be just percentage of all the income they bring in. It could be a percentage of the income over target that they bring in. It could be a percentage of profits. So there's a million different ways of setting up a profit sharing plan. I'm not a big fan of them, even though some of the franchise systems use them. So the big one, Big Blue, uses profit sharing. It's all over the internet. You can find people on Facebook forums and all that kind of stuff posting about profit sharing. I think it might even be in Brian Scudamore's book. They talk a little bit about it. The one thing that I'm not a huge fan of on profit sharing is profit sharing encourages your guys to overquote. And you might be thinking, what's wrong with overquoting? So the issue with overquoting is you earn more money, but your customer, the customer that's there, maybe the worst case scenario is they don't do any job at all. So you completely miss out on the income. The second scenario is that they actually proceed with the job. Well, if you're sitting there thinking, well, they were given a quote up front, they had the option to say no, yet they chose to move forward, what's the big deal? The problem with that is that customer moves forward, but they might post a bad review online. Maybe not. A lot of them don't. What most of them do, though, is they never use you again. The key thing on junk removal, one of the key things on junk removal is the 3 R's. I talk about it all the time. You need the repeat business, referral, and reviews. When you go off and you do a full load job of $600, that's a very valuable job right at that very point. You might be surprised though, the most value that comes out of that job might be you might have gained a person that's going to use you again, that's going to refer somebody else to you, is going to leave an online review. When your guys overquote, you potentially threaten that, which is absolutely huge. So that's my reason I don't like straight profit sharing. So what are your other options? If you're not doing profit sharing, what can you do instead? So here are a couple different choices here. You can reward them for something like a job average over X that has at least a 9.5 customer rating on the follow-up call, and a job completion rate over X. Now, why am I saying X? Because this is going to vary based on your location, your business, what you're charging. You have to determine what your baseline is. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth here in just a bit. Reward job average over X with at least a 9.5 rating. So you're doing these customer follow-up calls, you're making sure these people are happy, and it has a job completion rate over X, and then it's over a certain period of time. It could be over a week, a month, a quarter. Monthly would be pretty common for doing this. Well, what might you pay on that? Well, it just depends. But you know, your team might be motivated. If you know, $500 could be really, really motivating to somebody. $1,000 seems to be extra motivating. So it depends how many guys you have. You would normally do this for your you'd have something for your team leader, something for your navigator, and the team leader would get a higher percentage. Is a great way of doing this. So that's one thing you might do. The second thing, rewarding a certain income per payroll hour. While still maintaining that 9.5 rating. Third thing, you might reward completing over X amount of jobs. And then you might say, this is along the lines of what is one of the things we talked about, getting more customers. If your crews get X amount of pictures of customer with yard sign over a certain period. Tommy V, Mean Green Junk Removal down in Denton, Texas. I posted a picture on some Facebook groups and on our Junk Removal Authority Facebook page months ago, probably 3 months ago. We were talking about, you know, what do I want to do when I'm slow? And I said, you know, what you can actually do is you can hold signs up on corners. You can have your truck parked, hold signs up on corners, and just kind of wave at traffic and all as it goes by. This has probably been 3 or 4 months ago, before he opened up. He called me a day or two later and he says, man, I'm going to get a dinosaur. I said, what? He said, I'm going to get some blow-up dinosaurs, and we're going to get on these things, and we're going to ride them on the corner, on intersections on busy roadways. And I said, well, that'll definitely get attention. So he sent me a picture. I posted on our Facebook page. Tommy and one of his team members were sitting there riding these 2 dinosaurs. They're blow-up or whatever, so they're just sitting on them, and they got signs up. They got their truck with the bed raised up. he got work off of that, believe it or not. So incentivizing your guys to do something like that, again, is something that's going to drive more business. It's going to make you more money. So you could reward them for that. The possibilities on this are really limitless. Think about what's valuable to your business, what kind of money and how valuable it is to you, and reward people as such. We got any questions or anything? Any questions or comments, Matt? Anybody talk about how busy they've been so far in July?
Code 3 is going to call the IRS on your under-the-table payments.
Thank you. 10 years ago. I'm hearing that they're talking about having a lot of IRS agents, so we better be careful there.
You've got Gutsy Fox says, thanks for all the great information, Lee. We're new, one trailer. I can do most jobs on my own, but it seems more professional to show up with a two-man crew. Should I take another guy on each trip?
Yeah, 100%. And you can just raise your prices to do that. When we first started, we were so afraid of being expensive, or we were, part of this, when you first get started in junk removal, if you're willing to go out with a truck and trailer and haul this stuff off, you're willing to do the work on your own. So many times it's hard for you to believe that there's people out there willing to pay $400, $500, $600, $700, or even $1,000 for a truckload. So when we first started, got junk might have been $450 for a full load. Junk King might have been $400, and College Hunks might have been $480 or $500, somewhere in that range. I think we started out at like $195 for a 12 cubic yard trailer, which would be equivalent to like $250 for a full load on like a 15-yard truck. So we were like half price of what everybody else was charging. I used to go out and do these jobs on my own because you made more. And then I did a job for a guy by the name of Michael Jordan. It was not the Michael Jordan, unfortunately. It was a short white guy that was located in Durham, North Carolina. We were removing fencing, and it was wooden fencing, and it was all it wasn't cut up or anything. So you had these huge fence panels, all wood, pretty heavy. But the main thing is they were all tangled up. So the guy just thrown them in a pile. There's nails and everything. They're all tangled up. So by myself, I was having to load this trailer up. Well, as the load got pretty full, it became harder and harder to actually load the trailer. And what wound up happening is a piece of that board got hung up, and then it slipped out of my hands, and it came down, and a nail slashed a gash in my leg, probably about this long and deep. I mean, I've got it looks like somebody just knifed the hell out of me on my leg from where this nail hit. After doing that work from Michael Jordan, I said that I'm never going to do another job on my own if I can help it. So immediately after that, I think I raised prices by essentially about $30 almost on every single price point. That was enough to offset, a little bit more than offset, bringing on somebody new. And we really picked up at that point. Jobs are easier. You were more professional. You talked about that earlier. You were safer. You got more done. So there was not a downside to it whatsoever. Get that second person as quickly as you can. You'll make more money. Raise your prices. You'll make more money. I guarantee it. Great question. What else we got?
We've got one of our brand new clients, Worker Bees Junk Removal. They said, in order to save on storage or warehouse fees after getting the second truck, will it be smart to have the driver or brother-in-law park the truck at his home? Worker Bees, Western Massachusetts.
I've never been a huge fan of that for a couple reasons. One, very seldom when you get busy, you're going to be running 12-hour days, and you're going to be running 6 days a week. So you're not going to have the same guy driving all the time as you get larger. When you first get started, yeah, maybe that's okay. But homeowners associations, depending on where they live, HOAs generally are going to shut that down pretty quick. So the other end of it is it's sitting outside, exposed in a neighborhood. It could be potentially vandalism or people stealing something out of there. We've had tires slashed on our trucks before we had gated parking. So I think you should go with the storage unit route. It's normally only like $100 extra at most for another parking spot at a storage facility, so I would definitely go that route. And that also gives your people a central place to check in every single day. Good question, though. And looking forward to you getting that new truck, by the way.
We got one from Space Makers Junk Removal. We have been busy this July. We are currently fully booked, same day by 9 to 10 a.m., and occasionally by the night before. We are a 2-truck operation, so about 10 to 12 jobs a day.
Very good. I'm sure you guys are working on your third truck and all right now to keep up that same-day booking. Being down there in Texas and everything, too, you're not quite as seasonal as everybody else. Appreciate the comment, guys. Anybody else, if you want to comment on how busy you've been, we'd love to hear it. Several people a little nervous out there because it's been a little bit slower. I know junk doctors, we're down about 10% from last month. But overall, things are still just rocking and rolling for the most part. It's just a little bit slower than it's been.
We got a couple comments from Stephen Stout. He said, I was told by local Big Blue workers that all tips got into a large pot and everyone gets to share them. He also says, pay up on sales and Google reviews and reward on no crashes.
So that was a couple more right there. You had sales. I talked about, I like setting targets that if you're going to do a certain amount of sales, it's also tied into your average customer review and cancellation rates. The other thing you talked about was reviews. Technically, you're not supposed to pay for reviews according to Google and Yelp and all terms of service. Well, you're not supposed to pay customers. I guess this would be I think this would be fine. So in this case, you could. If you hit a certain target over a certain period of time, number of reviews your employees did, paying your employees for asking for those great reviews is certainly legal. So that'd be a good one. What was the other one he said?
No crashes.
Yeah. Good driving behavior, however you want to measure that.
Sales.
You could do this with Stephen with Junk Reduction down in Florida. We use Blue Arrow Telematics. He uses somebody else. We were just talking about it yesterday. That actually can monitor drivers' behavior. And at least I know Blue Arrow can. It can kind of rate how they're doing in terms of acceleration, braking, and all. There might be a way you can tie in that certainly. But that also goes back to the first point, which is you set more minimum performance standards. And if somebody gets an at-fault crash, a lot of companies, like if you're UPS or FedEx, you get an at-fault crash, you're done. So you lose your driving privileges at that point. Some of those companies even look down, like they're going to analyze, even if you're considered not at fault, if you were in a crash, but it was avoidable, you could potentially actually lose your driving privileges. How strict you want to be on that is up to you. It's very, very hard to find people right now. So, had we done this 10 years ago, you'd probably be a little bit more strict than you would now when you're trying to get everybody you can. But both great points by Stephen Stout, Junk Reduction. Any other comments?
Spacemaker says, for incentives, we have had some success motivating techs and creating competition between each of them by tracking who receives reviews and averaging these to rank techs on a digital scoreboard.
So that's just taking the reviews that Steve was talking about, rewarding just to another level. I mean, that goes back to basic sales motivation. If you've ever been a part of a sales team, you're going to have your sales reports, your weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly, whatever sales reports, and they're going to be publicly posted within the sales team so everybody can see how they stack up against their competition. And that's the same exact thing right there. Creating competition is always a great thing. It's something I didn't mention on here, but if you can create a competition, publish how people are actually doing, you're going to get even better results as well.
A couple comments. You got Juan in Bay Hauling says, never a dull day in junk removal. He also says he just signed in with Melvin at Blue Arrow. Thanks for the referral.
Very good.
Spacemaker said they use an application called Nice Job.
Yep.
And Code 3 says we're a little bit slower and revenue is down this month as well.
Good looking website there, Code 3. I saw you post that thing up. Looks pretty nice. So I know that was a long time coming for you. Thank you for watching again. Okay. So we've talked about, and we had some good input from people on some other stuff that you might set up motivating compensation plans around. So what do you need to do now if you currently don't have one? The very first thing that you need to do is you need to establish a baseline. How do you know what to reward when you don't know where you currently are? And you need to get an accurate baseline right now. It's not necessarily if you're on the truck 2 years ago, like I would not be good at establishing if I was going in this fresh and I haven't been on a truck in 5 years probably, I would be a terrible individual at establishing this baseline. So the best way of doing it for the most part is you yourself go out on the truck for like a month. But if you're already off, most of us aren't going to do that. We've got other stuff we're working on. So that's one option. You do it for a month. if you're already on the truck, you're in a prime position to go ahead and do this. If you're already on the truck with just one other team member, you're probably like, why am I worried about motivating compensation plans? Well, you're worried about it because you're going to grow. If you're watching this show, you're doing the things you need to do, you're going to get larger, and you're in a prime position right now to go ahead and establish your baseline. Start tracking what you yourself do in terms of productivity, customer reviews, pictures of customers with yard signs, or whatever you want to track. So establish a baseline. If you're not on the truck, what you do is you, over a course of 1 to 2 months and minimum, track individuals' data. So each individual team member you have, or especially team leader, track individual data, average it, and determine your top performance. Determine top performer and what he does. Until you have this data, on most things, you're not going to want to set a compensation plan that, bonuses, whatever. To struggle to getting that out there. You don't want to set that until you actually know where you currently are. Because the whole idea behind this is you squeeze just a little bit more performance out of your team. Now, you want to be very careful. You don't want to set this thing up where you're trying to, reach the moon automatically. When Elon Musk set out to do, SpaceX, his overall goal later on is to eventually reach Mars. But he didn't try and build the first rocket to reach Mars. First thing you try to do is just get the thing up into the atmosphere. So that's what you're trying to do right now. You're trying to get your rocket ship, you're trying to understand what you need to do to get your rocket ship to launch. And the very first thing that you need to do is understand kind of where you're at right now. So get 1 to 2 months minimum of data. Don't do it off a few weeks. The other thing is you really need to analyze this data. So be mindful of large jobs. Large jobs skew your data unless you consistently get them. Now, what do I mean by a large job? I consider a large job to be something in excess of $5,000. You might consider it to be 3, but I normally look at it at $5,000. We get enough $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 jobs, and I look at it as $5,000. Super, super large, over 10K. And I talk to people, if you guys have never had a 10K or larger job, I talk to people all the time. We got a guy out west sitting there, he's about to do on the West Coast. I think he told me it was like a $40,000 job. He's already done 1 or 2 $40,000 jobs over the year. We got another guy sort of in around about that same area. No, I'm sorry, this guy's actually on the East Coast, just a little north of us. $100,000 job for an apartment and hotel, cleaning out an old hotel they're renovating. So these really, really large jobs happen. You don't want to base your average on these months where you have these humongous jobs because it's going to skew everything off. One of the most important things after you establish that baseline is make your marks achievable. There is nothing motivating. Matter of fact, it's demotivating if you set marks that people are not going to reach. So when you first do this, you might do just an incremental jump. You want to see how your team actually does. You want them to actually get some positive momentum of getting that little bit of extra bonus. So once they kind of feel it, they see it, they're able to spend it, then at that point, this is becoming real for them. It's not some pie in the sky theory that you've invented that they're never going to see. So give them a quick win. Find something in there where you can give them a quick win. It might be over a week time frame. Say, hey, you hit this amount over this next week, I'm gonna get you $100 or something like that. And that gets them kind of in that mood. Once you make them achievable, and what might achievable be? Well, you figure your baseline, it might be something like 10% over average performance. And that sounds like a lot. So if you're doing a ton of jobs, maybe it isn't 10%, but it could be 10% over average performance, maybe it's 5. And then something like 3 to 5% over top performance. Now, full disclosure, this varies a lot from business to business. Don't just take these numbers and go off and do them. Like before I would actually implement this in your business, I would want to know what your baseline is. I would want to know how many jobs you're doing, how many jobs you're about to project to do, what your profit margins are. You really need to think through all the different scenarios before you set this plan. So, my last little thing that I'm going to talk about here. Take your time doing this. I mentioned it before. If your business is doing okay now, if it's been growing, don't make drastic changes. And this can be drastic because once you implement these changes, it is very hard to back them off and still maintain great performance. So before you put them out, I'd rather you start small and incremental, and work your way up to larger. And then that way you can actually see how it's really going to affect your balance sheet and your profit and loss statement. So really, really take your time. Make sure your teams do not get burned out trying to achieve goals. This is very common in a manufacturing environment. So with like our truck facility right now, we don't have a ton of guys working for us right now, but we're looking at, we got a new building going in. So we're more than doubling our manufacturing capacity and the size of our building with taller ceilings. We'll actually have overhead cranes to be able to move this stuff around. We'll actually have room enough where we can get a CNC plasma table to really, where we're not having to outsource some of this cutting and stuff out. That's going to bring the cost of these trucks down and lower our turnaround time on them by eventually by weeks. So what we're thinking about is as we add more people, how do we motivate them to turn out more trucks? So the easiest thing is every truck that's completed over goal, you get paid X amount, or if you do X amount of trucks in this period of time, or for every truck that's finished, you get paid this amount, whatever. But what you have to be very, very careful on is you don't set these goals and your guys really, really go after them and then they get burnt out. Because what I've learned is you, as the manager, as the business owner and manager, you have to monitor burnout. Your team members aren't going to do that. They're going to go after, even if it's semi-optional, they're going to go after every single dollar. They're going to tell you they want to work 80 hours a week on the junk removal truck. And then they're not going to tell you when they want to back off. They're just going to get sick and tired of it and they're going to quit. So you have to really, really be careful that when you set these things that you're really not encouraging too many hours necessarily that's going to lead to burnout. A little bit extra hours is okay, but what you're really trying to do is you're trying to get more production in the same amount of time. You're trying to get information from these guys. They can tell you what could change, what you could do differently. You'll be amazed at what your truck crews will actually observe out in the field. If they're incentivized to get stuff done faster, they might find ways in operationally for changes that you can actually make and implement. It's going to improve your bottom line and allow them to more easily hit their goal. So watch for burnout. A good compensation plan motivates your team to overperform. If you set this compensation plan, you must pay out on it and make good on it. Be very specific on what you expect before them to achieve before you pay that bonus. But under no circumstances whatsoever do you ever not pay off on something you agreed to somebody when they met your specifications, even if you overlooked something and it didn't quite work out the way you thought it would. Extremely important, because otherwise you lose all credibility whatsoever and you've completely demotivated that person, and this compensation plan will never work on them again. So always pay out. Appreciate everybody for watching this episode. Hope you found it helpful. This is a topic, if you're in our mastermind group, we will be going into in depth. So this kind of touches on the surface. We're going to go into much more in depth with the 18 or 20 people that have already signed up for that mastermind. It starts in middle of August. As of right now, there's still 2 people that have not paid. We've reserved those spots for them, but they better get us our money in the next couple days or we're going to open it back up. So get on our waiting list if you want to be on that group. I have no idea when we're going to do this next one. It's probably going to be at least 3 months. Who knows? Maybe it's less. It could be even longer. Appreciate everybody watching again today. We do this every single Tuesday, 12 noon Eastern, except when we don't. And we will be doing it next week, so make sure you tune in. We'll see you next week at 12 noon Eastern Time on Let's Talk Junk, brought to you by Junk Removal Authority.